The original time for all that we were going to do today, before Katie called me and said she wanted to do something about lagniappe, and having lived in Louisiana for 10 years, I knew exactly what she was talking about, and I thought, perfect. So I'm now going to read that reading because it goes along hand in hand with our talk today, and it was written by Alan Cohen. It should be the peak of my teaching career. I've spent years devising techniques to engage the students in my ideas in my class, and they have been successful. But this year is different. No matter what I do, I cannot generate any spark of excitement in the kids. The techniques I have integrated into my work fall flat, one after the other. I blame the students. They have no interest, no leader, no love of learning. I blame their parents, who do not offer support. I blame their previous teachers, who failed them and brought them to this mediocre state. Certainly cannot be me. I attend a week-long workshop in the mountains of North Carolina. I think I'm going to learn about myth and story, traditional culture, and multicultural healing. What I bring back is a precious lesson, the gift of a teacher from an African tribal background. I learned that many tribal cultures had in their basic tenets of their philosophy the idea that everyone enters this world with a unique gift. The idea was passed to the ancient Greeks and expressed in the writings of Plato. It became widespread, but seems to have gone into hiding in these modern times. The gift comes with each newborn child, but in the cosmologies of each particular group that embrace the idea, the gift is forgotten upon entering the world, whether from stepping into the river of forgetfulness, hugging a tree of forgetting, or just the birth trauma itself. Once here, the child holds great potential. It's the most important part of life to discover one's gift and grow into it. Everything depends on this. Once the gift is known, it's an obligation to give it generously to one's people and the world. One rarely knows the gift until it's seen by someone credible. Then it can be activated. In our culture, the person most likely to see this is a teacher. Returning to my class, I began the process of seeing the gift in each student. There was no dramatic epiphany, but I now felt different about my purpose. Over the years, as in any serious practice, my ability grew. I was able to recognize gifts in particular students and convey this to them. I taught the gift idea to them so they could see the gift in others. And I realized that the students, shifting their own thinking, could not marginalize others as easily as before. They respected each other. Denying or bullying another person prevents them from giving you their gift. The idea of building my career by using techniques slowly died into the practice of creating an environment in which the students felt gifted and seen. They learned in order to gain skills that would help them give themselves to the world, and it made all the difference. I ran across this sermon one afternoon when I was just looking around to see what was out there. And this sort of resonated with me, so I decided to share it with you today. It was actually written by the Reverend Erica Barton. It's called Receiving Generously. So these are her words. Good morning. It's good to be with you. I'm a congregational consultant for the New England region of the UUA, which means it's my job to help UU congregations in New England when they have questions or struggles when the wider context beyond the congregation is helpful, when an outside person is needed to help hold something. There are 5 of us who do this job in New England, and we are here as your companions in the joyous and difficult parts of congregational life. My regional colleagues and I have developed a way of understanding the purpose of congregational life and the practices that can help us lean into this purpose. We call this spiritual leadership. Spiritual leadership is our term for a way of living that is rooted in your values, giving what is yours to give to the world, and joining with others to create communities of love and liberation for everyone. Spiritual leadership is not only for identified leaders. Everyone can develop their own spiritual leadership. And since every person is unique, spiritual leadership looks different in each of us. But we can recognize it, and through the commitment to living our values and offering what we can in community. At the Region, we believe that the purpose of congregational life at its core is to support everyone in the congregation to find and develop their spiritual leadership while creating communities of love and liberation for all. We have identified 5 practices that congregations can do in order to fulfill this purpose: covenanting, tending our tradition, doing our inner work, faithful risking, and centering in gifts. Today, I want to talk about the practice of centering in gifts. Our team's understanding of this practice has been deeply informed by Malidoma Somé, who was an elder of the Dragara people of Burkina Faso in West Africa, who understood his mission to be bringing this wisdom to the world. My colleague has studied with him extensively, and she has brought his understanding of gifts to us. He is the workshop leader who taught this practice to the author of the reading that I just did, Alan Cohen. And here's a little bit more from him. Whether they're raised in indigenous or modern culture, there are 2 things that people crave: the full realization of their innate gifts, and to have these gifts approved, acknowledged, and confirmed. There are countless people in the West whose efforts are sadly wasted because they have no means of expressing their unique genius. In the psyches of such people, there is an inner power and authority that fails to shine because the world around them cannot perceive it. Now, when we say gifts, that needs a little explanation, because we live in a context that is really focused on productivity and marketable skills. So lots of us have learned all kinds of skills and techniques that we use in our work lives, our congregational lives, in our families, and everywhere we go. There are lots of very helpful skills and techniques for all kinds of tasks and situations, and having a good number of them available to you can be really helpful, and I'm all about developing skills. But gifts are something different. Notice that Malidoma Somé calls them innate gifts. You're born with them. They're part of your nature. You can develop and hone them for sure, but you don't have to learn them at a basic level because they are part of you. I think of gifts of the things that shine out in us, the things we can't not do, in a joyful way. Like the person whose attention is always drawn to babies and small children and who interacts with them with such delight and openness that the children just love them. Or the person who is so in love with earth and soil that their garden is always overflowing. Or the person who can see a jumble of anything, clothes, files, images, ideas, and make of them a beautiful order, and doesn't find the task onerous, but rather enjoys the challenge and finds deep satisfaction in its completion. Somé goes as far as to call this our unique genius. So each one of you, you're all geniuses. We're not taught to think this way and about ourselves in our culture. Genius is something a very few, very smart, very accomplished people have. The rest of us are just ordinary, not spectacular, not special, just ordinary. Even people who were labeled as gifted as children can feel the weight of imposter syndrome. I'm not actually special or gifted. Someday they'll notice that I'm just ordinary. So how do you know what your gifts are? How do you identify your own unique genius? Sometimes we just know, but often we need others to help us discover our gifts. And this seems strange if a gift is something so core to our being that we can't not do it. But that's precisely why it can be difficult sometimes to discern our own gifts. Because they come so naturally to us, we think, well, that can't be a gift. It's no big deal. Anybody could do that. As it turns out, that's often not true. There's likely something that comes easily and naturally to you that others have to struggle to do. Some gifts are big and showy and hard to miss. I think, for example, of people with a gift for performing. That usually becomes obvious at some point. Or the people with a gift for greeting and welcoming others. I mean, you've probably met them because they have a gift for meeting you. Other gifts are quieter and more subtle. The gift of sitting with someone who's sad or lonely without trying to fix it. The gift of just being there. The gift of creating a physical space that feels calm and peaceful. The gift of asking the key question. The gift of saying the one sentence at the end of an hour-long conversation that sums up the heart of what's been said. These gifts take a little more careful observation to notice. Somé says, one of the things we long for is to have our gifts acknowledged, confirmed, and approved. Part of centering in gifts as a community is to notice each other's gifts and then acknowledge them. To help each other feel deeply seen as people with something to offer, as people who embody our own unique version of spiritual leadership. In the reading this morning, we heard about what this looks like in the community of the classroom. In the first few months of my time on the regional staff, I went with a colleague named Joe Sullivan to a leadership retreat in one of our congregations. Joe led the board members, the committee on ministry members, and the minister in an exercise of noticing each other's gifts. We went around the circle, and for each person, Joe invited others in the room to speak about that person's gifts. And they did. They mentioned things like sense of humor, the insight to ask those key questions, a willingness to speak a minority opinion with courage and without bitterness. Each person who spoke about a gift did it with deep appreciation. I could feel the joy and gratitude in the room. When we were done, there was a lightness and a closeness in the group that hadn't been there before. This is one way of centering in gifts in a congregation, but it was one exercise in one day of a retreat. I've done this exercise a bunch of times since, and I've learned it from Joe, and almost every time there was that same sense of joy and excitement and lightness and closeness. Often this takes a lot longer than you planned for. And I think it's because this is something we crave, not only to have our own gifts seen and confirmed, but also to see and confirm the gifts of others. In fact, I've noticed that people tend to get at least as much joy from telling someone else about their gifts as from having their gifts confirmed. Feels pretty good. So when the opportunity comes, we want to revel in it. As Unitarian Universalists, one of our principles is to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The practice of noticing and naming each other's gift is one way to practice this principle. This is one way of noticing the full humanity of others and of promoting everyone's ability to claim and live into their worth and dignity. So right now, I invite you to think of someone who has a gift that's been important to you. What have you seen someone doing with joy and love? What has someone offered to you that has been moving or helpful or supportive or inspiring? Take a moment to say thank you in your heart for this gift. And if you have never told this person that you received that gift from them, I invite you to do that. This idea may seem awkward. It's strange to me how rarely we tell each other what we appreciate about each other, what we mean to each other. But it's rare, and so it's awkward. It's something that many of us lack practice in. But if you do it anyway, it's always appreciated. And it's usually a way of spreading some joy. I call this sermon Reading Generously because we usually think about giving generously. And I know that many of you give very generously of your gifts and your skills and your other resources to the congregation. That's also an important spiritual practice. But we think less about what it means to receive generously, a gift that has meaning when it's received and appreciated. That's as true for the gifts of our being as for more concrete gifts. But there's one more layer to the practice of centering in gifts. Sommet says that there are countless people in the West whose efforts are sadly wasted because they have no means of expressing their unique gifts. Some of us are lucky enough to have ways to offer our gifts in our other aspects of our lives beyond the congregation, in our families or jobs or other groups that we belong to. But some of us don't. Some of us don't have any way to offer our gifts to all, and some of us only a little bit or only occasionally. So as a community, part of receiving each other generously means offering each person a way to express their unique gifts. Sometimes this requires creating new avenues to offer gifts in the community that haven't existed yet. This is how we can help each other grow in spiritual leadership, by giving the power in each of us a way to shine. So, you're a genius. Right now, without having to do anything, you're already carrying the gifts for your community and for the world. Turn your attention inward. Can you notice your own gifts? Every person around you in this room is a genius. We all carry precious gifts to our community and the world. Can you notice the gifts in other people? If not right now, can you prepare to be on the lookout? Can you make it a practice to seek these gifts in others? Yes, we're all geniuses. And together, we can create a community that notices gifts, celebrates them, and gives them ways to be expressed. I invite you to give it a try. So may it be. Thank you, Reverend Barton. I want to throw in a little thought of my own. We had the wine party last night. A lot of people pitched in to help. Mauricio helped, Katie helped, Vicky helped, Bob helped. I think everybody that was there helped. They just did it. They stepped up and just did it. Every week, we remind you that we are a lay-led congregation, and we're lay-led by choice, not by accident. And we depend on the gifts of our members to take care of the needs and desires of the fellowship. So be sure to thank each other for your contributions to our activities and services. And for those who have been reluctant to share those, let's learn how we can involve them by creating an avenue for them to have a chance to let us receive generously from them. Because we want every one of us to feel that you have a stake in the future of the fellowship to develop your spiritual leadership. Thank you very much.